Today I'm going to talk about using data with Twitter, and I'm going to focus on Twitter specifically because it gives us access to the largest amount of data for social media. And Twitter recently announced they have over 100 million users, and so it's got there's a lot of information that we can go through there and kind of use something that's new and different for marketing or making connections. And really, connections are fairly easy to make, but what we want to talk about is making targeted connections. The problem with Twitter, as a lot of you probably know, is that there's a lot of noise. It's very difficult to sort of filter through that because there's so many users, because there are 12 billion tweets a month. It's very difficult to get to a user, get to the information that you want. So what data do you have available to you to filter through some of this noise? This is a little hard to see here, but some of the obvious stuff, you have followers, so how many followers someone has, how many people are following you, how many people you're following, the number of lists that you're on, the number of lists that you have on your profile, as well as some of the content. So some of the things that you're tweeting about, the words that you have that you're using, the frequency, the last date of a tweet. These are all pieces of data that you have at your disposal. So where can you find that? First place is twitter.com, like I just showed you, but that's not the most efficient way to get it. The best way to get it is through Twitter's API, and that gives you a ton of data, allows you to manipulate it however you want, and that's probably the best source. For people who don't have access to that or don't have the programming skills to do anything with it, there are some Twitter tools. Some of them are free, some of them cost a little bit of money, and some of them are pretty expensive. So what kind of analysis can you do with that data? And these are just, there's a million things that you can do, but these are some basic ideas. Okay, so number one, you can tell a user's notoriety. And one way that you do that, this is a little hard to see, but you can actually take the number of followers that they have divided by the number of people that they're following. And that gives you a ratio to sort of determine their notoriety to some degree. Let me give you an example. So let's say I have 10,000 followers. That is somewhat impressive, I guess, or somewhat unusual, but it's less unusual if I also follow 10,000 people. The reason for that is if I go out and follow a ton of people, a lot of people are just going to follow me back just to be nice or just out of a courtesy. However, if I have 10,000 followers and I only follow 10 people or 100 people, it's very likely that I have some influence in an industry or that I'm somewhat well known. That's a very hard thing to sort of manipulate and game, so it's a good indicator for seeing how famous someone is. Another thing that you can look at is influence, okay? So how often do I get retweeted? So if I send a tweet out and people retweet that, let's say I get one retweet a day. Now that's not impressive really if I'm tweeting 500 times a day, but it is more impressive if I only tweet 2 or 3 times a day. So that's a measure of someone's influence. Another measure is engagement. So how often am I communicating and engaging with other people on Twitter? And again, I like to use that as against some sort of other number. So you could do tweets over time to say how many tweets on average am I doing in a day or in a week or in a month. And that tells you how active someone is. Okay, so what can you do with this analysis? And I'm going to give you a real quick example. If you have any questions after, please ask me, because some of you may get lost in this, but that's fine. So this is an example of myself, and then these are 10, or actually 11 people that I follow within a certain industry. And in this case, it happens to be search engine optimization. So some of these people are really well known. Some of them are just friends that I know socially or aren't as well known, but they all have good information. And I follow them for the most part to get search engine optimization news or tricks or tactics and that sort of thing. So the next step that I can do once I have this group of people is then look at who they follow. Okay, so the people that they follow, they've sort of gave an endorsement to them. Okay, so if they're following them, they have some value in that person. And what I did is I took all the people that they follow, and I put them into this really big list. Okay, it came out to about 7,000 people. And so what I'm looking for here in this case is repeated names. Okay, so what names keep popping up on this list over and over and over again? Okay. And in this case, what I did is I said, okay, anyone who shows up more than 5 times on this big list, I want to pay attention to them. And the reason for that is that if someone shows up 5 times, that means that 5 of these people are following them, okay? At least 5. So anyone who has shows up more than 5 times, I want to segment out that list and target those 195 people, okay? Once I have these 195 people through a couple of different strategies, actually there's a lot of different things you can do. You can say, okay, I actually only want to find the most famous of those people or the most influential. And then you can apply one of the formulas that we talked about earlier, take followers divided by following, and see, okay, who is the most famous out of that group. Another thing that you could do is find out who communicates the most with other people in that group. And your strategies could be 1, I just want to find out the best information, or 2, I actually want to network with people and you know, meet new people and talk to them and make a real connection. Okay, so then once you have your 30 people, then you can follow them or connect with them or do whatever it is that you're trying to do with that. And I kind of went through this really fast, but that's all I have for it. I'm sure there's probably a couple questions, so I'll take any questions anyone has. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, getting the names and looking at them from your followers.
Right.
Now that's all available to you in the Twitter API?
Yes. Yeah, it's available in Twitter API. Also, there's a tool that I did this. I wanted to make sure that anyone could do this, so I did it with a free tool that's out there. And the tool that I use for this particular exercise is called Friend or Follow. So friendorfollow.com, and all you do is you put in the user's name, and then it shows all their followers and shows who they're following. And then you can actually export that into an Excel file and manipulate it that way. It's not as fast, certainly, but it's doable, and you can actually accomplish a lot by doing something like that. Yeah.
How many levels do you think for that?
How many levels? What do you mean?
Followers.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you do it, but you could go back as many levels as you want through Twitter's API, through programming. Yeah, and then if you wanted to do it the manual way through Excel, it would be a lot more work, but you could do it too. Anyone else? Questions? Yeah.
Twitter API, is that like a third-party tool like TweetDeck or something?
No, good question. So the Twitter. Oh, okay, he was asking essentially what the Twitter API is, if that's a third-party tool or something. That's actually something that Twitter puts out. They make their data freely available, and to get access to that, there's kind of a couple levels. On one level, you can get anyone can kind of get access to it. You just have to have a little programming knowledge, but it limits you pretty significantly to what you can do. Then you can get whitelisted if you want to develop a tool or an application or something like that. You can go to Twitter and then get a lot more data.
We would do that through Twitter.com?
Yes. You go through Twitter.com. The best way to do it is just Google Twitter API, and it'll show you all the documentation, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff.